Welcome to our live chat today on blockchain technology, which is currently a very hot topic and also important topic for the future as well. The session is brought to you by Circle of Influence, COI, which is a group of budding entrepreneurs and career professionals who are looking to network, innovate, partner, and learn from each other and mentors as well. Would like to thank you all for logging on. Thank you to COI members for helping this together. Thank you.
All that he has in store for us. So who is our speaker? Dr. Olu Akindeinde has 18 years experience working in the IT and information security arena. Very profound, 18 years. He is the co-founder and chief technical officer, Digital Encode. Digital Encode is a multi-award winning and leading consulting and integration firm that specializes in the design, management, and security of business, critical networks, telecommunications, environment, and other information technology infrastructure. Before I yield the platform to him to tell us everything that we need to know or lay a very great foundation for us, a couple of housekeeping rule communication. It is important that we take notes such that when it is time for us to ask questions, and there will be that time, we're able to ask our questions. However, you will be expected to raise your digital hand, and we will notice you and invite you to go ahead and ask your questions, which is very helpful for everybody. All right, so it is time for us to invite our very own Dr. Olu Akindeinde. I'm going to mute my mic now, yield the floor to him. And please I know there are questions agitating our mind. I have lots of questions, and so we're good to go. Dr. Olu Akindeinde, thank you so much for making it. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Thank you to Madam Buki for getting in touch and having talking to me to be a part of this, and I'm very, very happy to be here. It's my pleasure. And for one reason or the other, I think I may have met Mr. Olagoke Balogun. If I've not met him, I'm sure he's probably maybe he's met my partner Obada Repeater Adiwali, because he often talks to me about So Fresh and probably maybe LBS or Faith Foundation or something. I'm sure you must have met him somehow, or so it's good for me. Well, yeah, I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to be talking to this group of experienced entrepreneurs and professionals on blockchain technology. You see, the truth is, how do I start? Blockchain technology and all things that come around the cryptocurrencies, they sort of polarize opinions. And what I want us to do here is to sort of keep an open mind. I know that probably, some people, I don't know, maybe you are financial experts or you work in the banking sector or in the organized, I want us to keep an open mind. I'm not going to, try to push my opinion on the house, but I'm just going to tell you, the facts, of the matter, what we are seeing, what is likely to happen, and how, it will affect us personally as well as professionally, going forward. I first got into blockchain and its associated technology about 5-6 years ago. In the introduction, you mentioned that we are consultants. Yes, we actually do consulting for banks and the central bank. So around 2015, 2016, we are technical partners with the central bank on cybersecurity and e-fraud. So there was something that came up. So most times we do research for central bank in that area, and there was something that came up around that time on dark web. The central bank wanted to know that, look, they say that Nigerians are on dark web. You can buy credit cards, you can buy, all sorts of things on the dark web. Now, first of all, they tasked us to investigate. And secondly, if it was true, if you could buy something on the dark web, how were people making payments? So that if we know how they're making payments, would know how to trace. So we got started, and we actually got into the dark web. We logged onto the dark web, you know, and dark web is a wild place. I'm telling you for free. It's a, yeah. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. So the dark web is really, really massive. I mean, if you think of the surface web as it is now, just look at the surface web as consisting of just about 10 to 15% of the entire web. The remaining 80 to 85% is the dark web, where anything goes. You know, you can buy, you can hire, you know, hire assassins and all those kind of things. So we got in there, and we simulated, we talked to someone, and we said, well, let's make payments. And the person said we had to pay through something called cryptocurrency. And we're like, oh, cryptocurrency, what is that? How does that work? And then, you know, that led us into a lot of stuff like, you know, finding out what exactly this cryptocurrency was. At the time, Bitcoin was, you know, the main payment instrument. So the central bank wanted to know, okay, if you're paying through a channel, is it like a debit card where you have a, you know, a card number? Do they have account numbers? Do they have names? Do they have how? I mean, if you pay someone, how do you, you know, trace the payment back to the person? So we got, that was how I got started in it, and that was what led to, you know, going into deep into the rabbit hole. And since then, I don't think I have come out of it, because in addition to finding out that it was a payment mechanism for the dark web, we also realized that this could actually be a payment mechanism for the entire globe, because the way the technology works, I'm not going to go deep into the technology. I'm just going to explain the mechanism so that we can understand why there is so much noise about this thing. Now, the origins of blockchain technology and cryptocurrency stemmed from the financial crisis of 2008. Now, in 2008, when there was a global financial crisis, it came up that people had money in banks, and people who had money in banks that they could not collect via ATMs, or they could not even cash out. Someone now sat down and thought about it, that why do we have to entrust our financial lives to certain third-party organizations like banks? I mean, I have my money and I want to move it, and the bank is simply telling me that, well, I cannot move it, and, you know, I'm going to lose it. So he came up with a plan, not just a plan, he came up with a white paper. So he wrote a white paper on building a payment system that was going to be a peer-to-peer payment system that wasn't going to involve any third party. It wasn't going to involve any bank. And then he started writing, you know, the code. And his model was that if I have cash, if I have money with me, that's, you know, cash in my pocket, and I go to the market to pay, you know, to buy something, and I was going to pay. Now, if I bring out the cash, if I pay someone the cash, that cash is peer-to-peer. I'm paying the, you know, the seller directly without going through a man in the middle, without going through a bank. That cash is with me. Nobody can stop me. And I don't even have to know the seller, or the person doesn't have to trust me, doesn't have to know. The trust is in that financial instrument. So he decided to model that on the internet. He said, well, since we have this global medium of communication, which is the internet, could we sort of build something like that would be a cash representative on the internet? Now, we had banks then, but you know, when you move money with banks, I mean, when you have your ATM card and you go to a POS terminal, you see, the truth of the matter is that you are not in control of that transaction. What you are doing is you are telling the bank that, look, grant me permission on my account to transfer, to, you know, move money from, you know, to pay, you know, maybe I want to pay for, you know, some, you know, fruit juice at So Fresh. So I'm actually telling the bank. So that transaction is dependent upon that bank granting me that access, despite the fact that that money may be there. So it simply means that the bank could be down, the bank could be illiquid, anything could happen, and the transaction could come up, you know, false. So he decided to model something that would make it such that every time I wanted to spend my money on the internet, I would have access to it, and no one could stop me. That was the origins of the Bitcoin infrastructure. And then he now found out that the only way to implement this was to implement a global peer-to-peer system where every single person that joins that network would also be a partaker of that network. So it means that that currency or that infrastructure was not going to be dependent on one person. So there won't be a single point of failure. At the same time, there would not be a single point of control. So no, entity would control my access to that thing. And that was what started this whole, movement. However, when it started in 2009, the code came up in 2009. It was, nobody took it seriously. Like nobody really, took it seriously until, someone came with an idea around 2010 that, look, if people were having this kind of currency, the Bitcoin was, people were mining it. That's what we'll call mining. Maybe later on we'll talk about mining. I don't want to go too technical, that let's start to use this thing. So he put up 2 pizzas on the internet. I said, look, I want to sell these 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin. And someone on the internet, on the other side of the internet, saw this advert and decided to say, okay, I will pay 10,000 Bitcoin for pizza. And that was what originated the market making. So that was how Bitcoin obtained its first value. But it wasn't still popular. It was just, it was still under the radar. And it was then picked up by, people in the dark web to start using as a mechanism for, transaction. It's a bit like the way it all started. It's a bit like if you go to Kenya where they use M-Pesa. Now, I read somewhere that M-Pesa started because, well, this may be urban legend, that someone went to a store and wanted to buy something, maybe a bottle of water for, let's say, 50 shillings. And the person on getting there realized that he didn't have money in his pocket, but he had airtime. And he asked the storekeeper, look, I don't have these 50 shillings, but I have airtime worth 50 shillings. Would you take this as a means of payment for this bottle of water? And the person accepted. And that was the same thing that happened with, Bitcoin. And somehow it started gaining, value. Now, when it started gaining value, people now started studying it a lot more, that, okay, what is this Bitcoin and how does it work? And I'm going to quickly, in less than 2 minutes or 3 minutes, I'll explain how it works. Now, when the guy that created it, Satoshi Nakamoto, nobody knows, because nobody knows him, whether it's a him or a her or a them or something. But they created this thing and then they disappeared, because what they created was some kind of monetary system for the internet that was not issued by a government. So what he did was to look at the current monetary system of the world. And he realized that the problem with the money, why we have a lot of these financial crises, is the way the monetary system of the world, is being run or was built at the time it was built. Now, prior to 1970, there was the gold standard. Now, every currency, especially the US dollar, was backed by an equivalent amount of gold in the vault. And in 1973, when President Nixon took the currency of the gold standard, they started printing more. And then it made the it started diluting supply, and then we started having things like devaluation. So the $1 in 1970 is no longer worth the $1 of today, because they printed so much, and then there's inflation, and then it's eroded the value of that currency. So what he decided to do when he created the monetary policy for Bitcoin was to make it a predictable inflation rate. Now, furthermore, in addition to making it a predictable inflation rate, he made it a deflationary currency, such that at certain point, no more of that currency will be, issued. And that number is 21 million. That's why we often say that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is governed by code and math. So there is no way in the world you're going to ever have more than 21 million Bitcoin issued. And then the way he programmed it in the code is such that there is predictable emission. So every 10 minutes, for the first 4 years, every 10 minutes, all the miners, the people that are the individual independent people that that mine the currency, would every 10 minutes will create 50 Bitcoins. And every 4 years, that 50 Bitcoin will reduce by half. Another 4 years, so after the first 4 years, the 50 Bitcoin will reduce to 25. 25 will now reduce to 12 and a half after another 4 years. After another 4 years, 12 and a half will reduce to. So if you think about, if you calculate the regression, you find out that by the year 2140, would have reached the maximum and no Bitcoin will be created again. So right now there's predictable inflation rate, so you can model your money on it. And people now started saying that, wow, even though this thing was created as a payment system, people then realized that this is more like digital gold. This is more like an asset as opposed to a currency. And prior to Bitcoin and blockchain technology coming on board, there was no mechanism by which you could value any digital asset. Now, digital assets didn't have any value because you could actually create them out of thin air. If I have a picture, if I take a picture, I could send it to multiple people, you know. But with blockchain technology, you can now have digital assets that have value. You can't simply copy and paste any asset on the blockchain technology. That means that when you have your Bitcoin, you can't simply copy and paste it. I have access to it just as I have access, just like you cannot simply copy and paste a physical, Naira note or a physical dollar note. And that's what the technology has brought forth into the, technology, onto the internet, that such that I could be on the internet and I have an asset that is digital, but has value just because that asset cannot simply be copied and pasted. So that must have some value. Now, if you look at the entire medium of the internet, it's about information. So we can easily share information. We can easily share music files. We can easily share video files. So if I have a music file, I can't sell it to you because I can send it to you and I also have a copy. But if I have an asset that I cannot copy and paste, it simply starts to mean that that asset can start to have value in and of itself. And that was what started this whole, Bitcoin having value. Once people started saying that this is more like gold, this is more like, something that you can have and keep. Why do I have to spend something that I can, that is going to have more value, late in future? That's why if you look at the Bitcoin, when Bitcoin started, the price was like maybe 1 cent, and all of a sudden started growing up as people started saying that, look, in addition to the way the monetary system works, can I have an asset that would, that can hedge against that monetary system? And the answer is Bitcoin. Now, the problem is that, number one, it isn't issued by a central bank or a government. Number two, it isn't backed by anything. It's not backed. The value isn't backed by, a government policy or a central bank policy. And number three, it is decentralized. It has no owner. There is no Bitcoin organization. There is no blockchain, company. It is completely decentralized. And at anybody here, anybody with a computer can actually be a part of the network, and mine the Bitcoin. And so as it's grown, people have now started saying that this thing has a lot more value, and it obtains the value just because nobody, and then it is censorship resistant. Now, with your bank account, with your mobile payments, mobile banking, you still depend on your bank. I always tell bankers, because we talk to central bank and financial organizations a lot. You see, the financial system we have now, every time when you log into your banking application or your mobile bank and you see your account balance, say you have 100,000 naira. You see, the truth of the matter is that 100,000 naira is a representation of what you have. You don't really have it. The only way to, when you log in and you want to move value from that your account to another person's account, what you are sending to the bank is a message that, look, grant me access to move this value from my bank to this person's account. That transaction is entirely contingent upon your bank granting you that access. If they don't grant you that access, that money will not move. Secondly, when you see that account balance in your account, it really doesn't mean that that money is physically sitting in a vault somewhere. The money isn't there. It is fractional reserve. So that's why most times I always tell banks that if all the customers of the bank go to the bank today to withdraw money, they won't have the cash in place because they operate on fractional reserve. Bitcoin and blockchain technology, especially with the technology that now has come to replace sort of that this is full reserve. So if I have some kind of mechanism by which I can send value to you without knowing, you could be anywhere in the world and I'll send that value to you, you will receive it and you will be able to prove that. I mean, it's not, you can't repudiate because everything is written there. It's a global ledger. So every transaction is stored on a global ledger that anybody can view, unlike with the bank. So a lot of people now started at the beginning, they're using it for things like, fund transfer. So as you are now, if you want to move money from here, Nigeria to US, you really don't have to go through the, sourcing for dollar or something. You can log into any exchange and, buy Bitcoin, transfer it, and the person, disposes of it there, and then you have value. So that's the essence of, the blockchain technology. Now, in 2015, when some guy realized that this whole blockchain Bitcoin thing is solving the issue for a digital asset. So it became a representation of gold. So it's like digital gold. He now felt that there had to be something else that we could do to make the blockchain technology extend beyond, just having digital gold. Could we have a payment system? Could we replace entire banking systems with the blockchain technology? He was 19 at the time. The guy that started Ethereum, he now programmed Ethereum to be like a replacement for digital. So right now, as I'm talking to you now, you can do basically anything that you normally do with your bank on the blockchain. So you can do lending, you can do borrowing,